Imagine someone magically offers you an extra hour today. Would you take it? Almost certainly. How about an extra day this week? Most likely, yes. An extra month this year? Absolutely. We crave more time. But now, imagine being offered an extra 20 years added to the end of your life. Does that feel different? Do thoughts of illness, frailty, maybe boredom creep in? If so, you're not alone. What if I told you you've already been given decades of extra time compared to your ancestors, but collectively we seem hesitant, almost fearful of this incredible gift? What if those fears, the ones casting long shadows over the idea of a long life, are based on an outdated script, a way of thinking that no longer serves us? Are we truly prepared for the profound reality that most people listening to this right now, most people in developed nations, will likely live well into their 80s, 90s, or even reach 100 years old? And more importantly, are we prepared to make those extra years good years? Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% Bookshelf, the podcast that distills the most potent ideas from groundbreaking books into actionable insights for leaders, executives, and anyone aiming for exceptional performance and impact. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into a book that fundamentally challenges how we think about time, health, wealth, and the very structure of our lives and society, The Longevity Imperative: How to Build a Healthier and More Productive Society to Support Our Longer Lives, by economist Andrew J. Scott. Now, you might think, oh, another book about getting old. But let me assure you, this is something far more radical. Scott isn't just discussing aging. He's presenting a blueprint for a complete societal and personal overhaul demanded by the sheer fact of our extended lifespans. He argues we're stuck in a negative, problem-focused narrative about the aging society while completely missing the colossal opportunity of creating a thriving longevity society. The core idea we'll explore today is what Scott calls the Evergreen Agenda. It's a powerful shift in perspective, moving away from passively accepting inevitable decline and instead actively working to change how we age, ensuring our health span, our years of healthy, vibrant life, catches up to our dramatically increased lifespan. Forget just living longer. The imperative is to live better for longer. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll unpack why this shift isn't just nice to have, but an absolute necessity for our personal well-being, the success of our organizations, and the future of our economy. We'll uncover why our current systems are failing us, how aging itself is surprisingly malleable, and discover actionable strategies for navigating health, wealth, and finding meaning across a potentially much longer life. This isn't just about the future, it's about adapting now. So, let's begin by challenging the dominant narrative. We hear constantly about the problems of an aging society, don't we? The terrifying headlines warn of pension crises, spiraling healthcare costs, shrinking workforces, and intergenerational conflict over resources. It's painted as an inevitable economic and social burden. But is this framing missing the biggest opportunity, perhaps the greatest triumph of the 21st century? Andrew Scott opens his book with a personal reflection on his twin brother. Both, like many of us, have benefited immensely from the medical and public health breakthroughs of the past century that have gifted us these extra decades. For Scott, this increased life expectancy isn't a problem. It's a testament to human progress, a triumph. Yet, contrast this personal perspective with the relentless negativity often found in media portrayals, images of frailty, dependence, and economic drag. This aging society narrative focuses almost exclusively on the challenges of old age, implicitly assuming that more old people automatically means more problems. But Scott forces us to confront a fundamental statistical shift. It's not just that some people are living longer, reaching extreme old age as outliers. The game changer is that the majority of people in developed countries now expect to become very old. He points out that in many high-income nations, a child born today has more than a 50% chance of living past 100. Even for those of us already well into our careers, the odds have shifted dramatically. Scott cites figures suggesting that someone aged 50 today has a 70% chance of reaching 80. This isn't a niche issue anymore. It's the mainstream reality. This reality creates what Scott terms the longevity imperative. Because long life isn't the exception but the norm, we must shift our focus from merely extending life to actively pursuing aging well. This is the essence of the Evergreen Agenda, making health span match lifespan. It's a proactive, optimistic agenda focused on opportunity and adaptation. This stands in stark contrast to the passive, problem-focused aging society view, which breeds fear, inaction, and risks pitting generations against each other. If we don't adapt, if we simply live longer, but in poor health and without purpose, we risk falling into what Jonathan Swift described in Gulliver's Travels as the trap of the Struldbruggs, beings cursed with immortality, but not eternal youth, doomed to endless senescence and misery. That's the future the aging society narrative implicitly warns of, but Scott argues it's not inevitable, it's a choice. So, as leaders, let's pause and reflect. How does this pervasive aging society narrative currently influence your thinking? Does it subtly shape your strategic planning, assuming a workforce that largely retires by 65? Does it affect how you view older employees or candidates in your talent management pipeline? Does it even contribute to your own personal anxieties about the future? Scott urges us to reframe. Start viewing longevity not just as a cost center or a looming crisis, but as a potential dividend. What changes in your 5-year plan, your R&D investments, your workforce development strategy, if you assume that your key employees, and indeed you yourself, might remain healthy, engaged, and productive well into your 70s or even 80s? This isn't wishful thinking. It's recognizing the potential embedded in the longevity triumph if we choose to unlock it through the Evergreen Agenda. This brings us to a crucial, perhaps paradigm-shifting insight. Aging, as we typically perceive it, isn't a fixed, immutable process. Think about two 70-year-olds you know. Do they seem the same age in terms of energy, health, mobility, and cognitive function? Probably not. One might be running marathons, leading a company, or learning a new language, while another might be facing significant health challenges and limitations. Think of figures like Mick Jagger, still commanding stadium stages in his late 70s, or countless less famous individuals who defy stereotypes. These aren't just anecdotes, they illustrate a fundamental point. Scott emphasizes chronological age. The number of candles on your birthday cake isn't the full story. What if I told you that, biologically speaking, 80 could be the new 60? Scott introduces several ways to think about age beyond the simple chronological count. There's biological age, which reflects our physical health and functional capacity, sometimes measured using a frailty index or other biomarkers. Then, there's the narratological age, which is essentially our proximity to death based on population averages. A 70-year-old today is younger in this sense than a 70-year-old was a century ago, simply because their life expectancy is higher. The core scientific idea underpinning the Evergreen Agenda is that aging is, to a significant degree, malleable. While genetics certainly plays a role, estimates suggest around 15 to 30% of variation in lifespan might be genetic. A huge portion is influenced by our behavior, our environment, and increasingly by scientific advancements. Scientists are identifying the hallmarks of aging, specific biological processes like cellular senescence, telomere attrition, or mitochondrial dysfunction, not as inevitable destiny, but as targets for intervention. The crucial goal, therefore, isn't just adding years to lifespan, but adding life to years. It's about compressing morbidity, drastically reducing that often feared period of ill health and dependency at the end of life, sometimes called the red zone. We want to shrink the gap between total lifespan and healthy lifespan, healthspan. Scott contrasts the undesirable Struldbrugg future, long life, poor health, with two preferable scenarios. One is the Dorian Gray model, living a healthy life for roughly the same duration as now, but staying youthful and vigorous almost until the very end. The other, even more ambitious, is the Peter Pan model, slowing the aging process itself, leading to both a longer life and a longer period of health and vitality. The Evergreen Agenda aims squarely at achieving something closer to these latter scenarios. Now, for leaders listening, this isn't about waiting passively for some miracle anti-aging pill, though scientific advancements in geroscience are accelerating. It's about recognizing the power we already have to influence our biological age and promote healthspan, both for ourselves and within our organizations. The actionable steps are grounded in current science. Think about prioritizing sleep hygiene, something notoriously difficult for high-achieving executives, yet fundamentally crucial for cognitive function, metabolic health, and cellular repair. Consider how to integrate microbursts of physical activity into demanding schedules rather than relying solely on weekend warrior attempts. Implement stress management techniques specifically tailored to the pressures of leadership, mindfulness, strategic breaks, fostering supportive team environments. At an organizational level, are you promoting genuinely healthy food options in the workplace canteen or meetings? Are you designing work environments that encourage movement and minimize sedentary behavior? The message here is powerful. Influencing how we age isn't solely about future breakthroughs. It's fundamentally about optimizing the controllable factors today: nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, social connection, purpose, to build a healthier, more resilient future self. It's an investment with potentially decades of payoff, both personally and professionally. Optimizing individual behavior is critical, but Scott argues forcefully that it's not enough. Our current societal systems, healthcare, finance, the world of work, were largely designed for a world where living much past 70 was the exception, not the norm. Trying to run a 100-year life on these outdated systems is like trying to run sophisticated modern software on computer hardware from the 1980s. It's inefficient, prone to crashing, and fundamentally unsustainable. Are our current structures built for the reality of widespread longevity? The answer, Scott contends, is a resounding no. We see the symptoms everywhere: healthcare systems buckling under the cost of treating chronic age-related diseases, pension systems straining to cover payouts for decades longer than anticipated, workplaces struggling to adapt to older workforces. To truly realize the potential of the longevity society and implement the Evergreen Agenda, Scott calls for nothing short of a revolution in two key areas: health and wealth. First, the health revolution. Our current healthcare model is overwhelmingly focused on intervention, treating people once they become sick. While crucial, this reactive approach is ill-suited for maximizing healthspan over a long life. The revolution requires a massive shift towards prevention and health optimization. This means significantly greater investment in public health initiatives that target the behavioral and environmental drivers of health. Think anti-smoking campaigns, promoting healthy diets, designing walkable cities. It also means embracing personalized and predictive medicine, Imagine healthcare tailored not just to your current symptoms, but to your unique genetic predispositions, your microbiome, your real-time biomarkers, allowing for proactive interventions before disease takes hold. This future leverages biology and data to keep people healthier for longer, moving away from a one-size-fits-all, sickness-focused model. Second, the wealth revolution. The traditional financial advice, save diligently in your pension, retire at 65, is demonstrably insufficient for funding a potentially 30-plus year retirement amid significant uncertainty. The pensions crisis isn't just about insufficient savings, it's about the inadequacy of the entire model. Scott argues, we need new financial thinking and new financial products. It's not just about urging people to save more, although that's part of it. It's about managing longevity risk, the uncertainty of how long you'll live and need resources. This could involve revisiting and modernizing financial instruments like annuities or tontines, often called living insurance, that provide income security for life. Crucially, Scott emphasizes the need to broaden our definition of wealth beyond just financial assets. Our human capital, our health, skills, knowledge, relationships, adaptability becomes an increasingly vital asset in a longer life. Investing in maintaining and enhancing this human capital is perhaps the most fundamental financial security strategy of all. And let's be clear, the economic stakes are enormous. Scott highlights analyses using metrics like the value of a statistical life, VSL, which suggest that interventions leading to healthier aging, compressing morbidity, could unlock trillions of dollars in economic value globally. Healthier, older individuals contribute more through work and volunteering, consume more goods and services, and place less burden on healthcare systems. The longevity dividend is real, but it requires systemic change. So for leaders, the application here is multifaceted. Start by evaluating your company's health and wellness programs. Are they merely ticking a box, or are they genuinely proactive, incentivizing prevention and long-term health? Do they leverage data and personalization where appropriate? Then, assess the financial wellness support you offer employees. Does it adequately address the realities of longer lifespans and the need for managing longevity uncertainty? Does it encourage investment in skills and health as core components of financial security? And personally, are you actively managing longevity risk in your own financial planning? Are you sufficiently investing not just in your portfolio, but in your health, your skills, and your networks as primary assets for navigating a longer future? The health and wealth revolutions are intertwined, and they demand action from both institutions and individuals. If our health and financial systems need an overhaul for a world of longer lives, so too does the very structure of our careers and working lives. Remember the simple, linear life plan many of us grew up with. Learn in school, build a career, then enjoy a relatively short retirement. That standard three-stage model, education, work, retirement, is fundamentally broken when lives stretch towards 100 years. Applying that model to a century-long life leads to absurdities, perhaps 50 or 60 years stuck in the same career track, followed by 30 or 40 years of pure leisure. It's unsustainable financially and, frankly, unappealing for most people seeking purpose and engagement. This reality necessitates embracing what Scott, building on the work of Linda Grattan, calls the multistage life. Instead of a linear progression, imagine a life characterized by multiple transitions, periods of exploration, potentially planned breaks, concurrent activities, and evolving priorities. You might have phases focused on intense career building, followed by a period prioritizing caregiving or further education, then perhaps a transition to a less demanding but still meaningful role, maybe starting a new venture later in life or weaving periods of part-time work with more leisure. A linear career path simply isn't suited for longevity. The multi-stage life demands lifelong learning, not as a buzzword, but as a survival skill. We need to constantly update our knowledge and skills to remain relevant and adaptable across multiple decades of potential economic activity. Career shifts become the norm, not the exception. Planned breaks, sabbaticals for rejuvenation, retraining, or pursuing personal projects become not career derailments, but strategic investments in long-term human capital. This shift has profound implications for organizations. To retain talent, leverage experience, and unlock the economic benefits of older workers, that longevity dividend we talked about, firms need to adapt. This means creating more age-friendly jobs. These aren't just jobs for old peoples, they're jobs designed with principles that benefit workers of all ages, but are particularly crucial for sustaining productivity and well-being across longer careers. Think flexibility in hours and location, greater autonomy, roles that leverage experience and judgment rather than sheer physical stamina, and opportunities for continued learning and mentorship in both directions. However, a massive barrier stands in the way: ageism. Negative stereotypes about older workers, that they're less adaptable, less technologically savvy, more expensive, less ambitious, are pervasive and deeply damaging. Scott rightly identifies ageism not just as unfair discrimination, but as a significant economic hindrance. It prevents companies from accessing valuable experience, creates toxic workplace dynamics, and discourages older individuals from investing in their own skills and health, assuming they'll be pushed out anyway. Actively combating ageism is therefore not just an ethical imperative, but a business necessity for thriving in the longevity society. Furthermore, managing intergenerational dynamics positively becomes crucial. We need to move beyond simplistic, often conflict-driven narratives like "okay boomer" versus snowflake millennials. Instead, organizations that learn to leverage age diversity as a strength, fostering collaboration, mentorship, and mutual respect across generations, will have a distinct advantage. Experienced workers offer wisdom, institutional knowledge, and stability. Younger workers bring new skills, digital fluency, and fresh perspectives. The synergy can be incredibly powerful if managed intentionally. So, the application for leaders is clear. How can you begin to redesign work structures, roles, and career pathways within your organization to be more age-friendly and supportive of multi-stage lives? Are you offering genuine flexibility? Are promotion criteria and performance evaluations free from age bias? How can you actively combat ageism in hiring practices, team dynamics, and everyday workplace culture? Critically, are you investing in the ongoing training and development of your mid-career and older workers, signaling that they have a long-term future with the organization? And personally, how can you start planning for your own multi-stage life? What skills do you need to cultivate for your next potential chapter, 10 or 20 years down the line? Could a planned break or a portfolio career be part of your future? How consciously are you building professional and personal networks that span different age groups? Embracing the multi-stage life and fostering age diversity isn't just about managing older workers, it's about creating a more resilient, dynamic, and human-centered future of work for everyone. We've covered a lot of ground today, exploring the core message of Andrew J. Scott's vital book, The Longevity Imperative. The fundamental takeaway is this: longer life is no longer a future possibility, it's our current reality. This creates an urgent imperative to change how we age, shifting from the negative, problem-focused aging society narrative to the proactive, opportunity-driven Evergreen Agenda. We've learned that aging itself is far more malleable than we often assume, heavily influenced by our choices and environment. We've seen that our existing health, financial, and work systems are dangerously unprepared for this new reality and require radical transformation, a health revolution focused on prevention, a wealth revolution addressing longevity risk, and a shift towards multi-stage careers. And we've recognized that combating ageism and embracing age diversity aren't side issues, but central to unlocking the immense personal and economic potential of longer, healthier lives. This isn't just about making old age better, it's about enhancing all stages of a longer life. The future of longevity, the quality of those extra decades we've been gifted, isn't something that just passively happens to you or your organization. It's something you actively create, starting now. Scott's work provides the framework, but the action lies with us. So my challenge to you, as leaders and forward thinkers, is this: implement one evergreen action this week, inspired by our conversation. What could that be? Maybe it's scheduling that comprehensive health checkup you've been putting off, but this time with a specific focus on prevention and understanding your baseline health span metrics. Perhaps it's initiating an open conversation with your leadership team or your direct reports about how to foster a more age-inclusive culture and identify age-friendly job design principles. It could be taking a hard look at your personal financial plan, specifically asking your advisor how you are managing longevity uncertainty and ensuring your human capital, health and skills is part of that equation. Or maybe it's identifying one critical new skill you anticipate needing for the next stage of your own multi-stage career and finding a concrete resource, a course, a book, a mentor to start learning it. Choose one action, commit to it, because building a thriving longevity society starts with individual and organizational choices. Share the insights from this episode with your colleagues, your board, your teams. Spark the conversation. To purchase your own copy of The Longevity Imperative by Andrew J. Scott and explore these concepts in greater depth, please find the Amazon link in our episode description. For a full transcript and accompanying visualizations, visit ceoslibrary.com. Thank you for joining us on CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf. Until next time, keep investing in your health, your wealth, your wisdom, and prepare to thrive in the age of longevity.